guys, welcome to episode 7 of Mamemeister's High Score Kerfuffle Season 6, and last week's game was X-Texas, released by Capcom in 1985. This was a choice from Colin, following back-to-back wins. Capcom were releasing some great games around this time, really pushing things forward graphically, with gameplay to match. I like 1942, and I'm a big fan of Commando and Gunsmoke, but X-Texas I just struggled to get on with, and it didn't grab me to want to keep on playing. To me, it just felt a bit generic. The enemies, stages, and bosses are all a bit forgettable. It's a bit like Star Force that came out 6 months earlier, and I'm not a particular fan of that either. Regarding the actual game mechanic, I do find the ship a little slow, the second button move a bit useless, and I didn't enjoy that what feels like the majority of enemies coming from either the bottom or lower sides of the screen, meaning that every one of those you need to dodge before you can shoot it. This is a bit of a shame, and I was hoping I was going to like it a bit more, and this may be the worst run of games that we've had from my perspective. Regarding home releases, this came out pretty much arcade perfect on the PS1 and Sega Saturn as part of their Capcom Generation series, and then it came out on the PS2 in another Capcom collection.
So, I've got a little bonus for you guys, and that's where I'm going to look at the Famicom version, in addition to the arcade we've just been looking. So, the arcade version came out early in 1985, and the Famicom version came out late that same year. So, I guess a fairly early NES game, and as you can see, it pretty much captures the the essence of X-Texas. We've got the ship, and we've got these bees attacking us. Compared to the arcade, though, you've obviously got fewer colours, and the game does run slower. I mean, when I was looking at some reviews of this, the biggest issue that was sort of thrown at the game was the pretty terrible flicker on the sprites. And actually, I've reduced that here, so I'm playing on the Mister, and there's a kind of an extra sprites option which can reduce flicker, so that's quite nice. So games that really did suffer with flicker issues, you can reduce that. And actually, this game's not that bad. I do find X-Texas a bit challenging, and so this game's just that bit slower. There's less going on. It's probably not as terrible a version as some reviewers might like to tell you. And I think part of those bad reviews is the fact that the original game isn't that interesting. The criticisms are often, samey enemies, simple backgrounds, and the sprite flicker, obviously. But yeah, I think if you can reduce the flicker somewhat through an emulator or the Mister, as I've got here, I think it's not a bad version. I suggest you guys that have played in the last week, go fire up the Famicom version and let me know what you think, because I think it's okay. I mean, it's not a game I'm going to play again. I wouldn't have expected, but then I'm probably not going to spend much time with the arcade version either. So yeah, nice little bonus for you guys. And let's get on to the scores.
We had 17 scores this week, with our solid core coming back once again. Milthy has been doing well this season, but he's down in 13th. Mike and Retro Arcade Challenge are just ahead. Robert rounds out our top 10, followed by Colin, Paul and myself in the 2 to 300,000 range. KMA and Mark are then in the 3 to 400,000 range. Ian is in 4th with an excellent 460,000, and then our top 3 are made up of Leagsy in 3rd with a great last minute submission of 567,000, just missing out on pipping the ever consistent Graham, who's in 2nd and scored 580,000. But this week's winner is no surprise to me. He previously topped our Star Force table, and given this game is similar, and we all know he loves a shmup, it's Big Juffer taking the win, with a huge 690,000. Well done to Juff for that well-earned victory, and it brings Colin's streak to an end. Here is the score distribution. We see that things are fairly evenly spread across the score range, with only one gap and similarly filled bins. 5th to 10th are all in the same bin, showing that it was close there, and then our top 3 are all in the same bin, showing that it was a close one this week, but it was Juff who took the win. And now the difficulty curve, and a curve this isn't. It's about as linear as we're going to get. We see that the scores gradually increase, corresponding to a gradual increase in difficulty, which makes sense with the game, given that the levels are fairly similar and it becomes a bit of an endurance exercise with not a huge amount of lives on offer. The score timings I think will be a permanent fixture now, and I like seeing how things develop over the week. At the top, we can see how dominant Juff was, an early pace setter, and upped things a few times over the early part of the week. Both Graham and Ian came in strong and improved over the week, but weren't able to challenge Juff. Leagsy, however, came in late with a single score, but that was good enough for third. We can see the improvement Paul made over the first half of the week, but was then unable to improve beyond that, and I made some early ground before jumping right up towards the end. Things were a bit more spread out this week, so I think the graph's working well. So with 6 games in, here is the league table, and we've got a bit of movement in the top 10. That excellent third place for Leagsy has seen him climb 2 spots into 8th, and that 4th place for Ian has got him ahead of Milthy. Further up is Juff, who's the big mover this week. That win has seen him gain 3 spots to jump up to 2nd place. I've also drawn level with Paul, so the battle for the podium places is very close. At the top though, it's looking less likely that we'll see a change, and Graham continues to lead and is now 120 points ahead of Juff. After a run of mediocre games from my perspective, let's see what this week's game is. With 1985 done, let's go on to an excellent year where a very significant release occurred. That's 1986, the year of my birth. I've had 14 games sent to me, including a couple of submissions of Jackal, Bubble Bobble and Wonder Boy. This week's winner Juff chose Jackal, so that gives it 4 out of 17 chances of appearing. So let's set things going and see what we get. Okay, there it goes. Going down. Oh, is it going to stop? Is it just ticked over? So we've got Slap Fight from Robert. Okay, so cool. So back-to-back shmups. Another vertical shmup. Yeah, I'll go make a short video and be back in a second. So this week's game is Slap Fight, released by Toaplan in 1986. Back in Season 1, we had Tiger Heli, also from Toaplan, and you can see the similarities here. I enjoyed that game, and although it doesn't have the graphical polish of some of the Capcom games, it had some solid gameplay, and I expect this to be similar. A quick play, and it's clearly taking some inspiration from Gradius, with the power-up system. You collect little stars and can spend them on ship upgrades. The first one is speed, just like Gradius, and then you have different flavours of weapon which you can power up with the wing option. There is also the side shot and ultimately a shield. I'm glad this allows a speed upgrade. I was struggling with the slow ship in XX's, and I'm hoping this is the better game. This game saw a number of home releases, and Alan did an arcade perfect my arse a whole 5 years ago now. I think the Mega Drive version is pretty decent, but it did see a few 8-bit releases too. We'll be playing the Japanese Set 1 ROM with default settings as usual. Our next year is 1987, and there were some good games released that year. We've already had the classic Rainbow Islands, R-Type, Shinobi, and Gemini Wing. And we could have Afterburner, Darius, Super Hang-On, 1943, Contra, Double Dragon, and more great games. I hope you all enjoy playing some Slap Fight, and I'll be back next week with the scores. See you then.